Far too few are doing the heavy lifting for all of us and paying a very high price. So I'm honoured to salute today a champion of liberty, a defender of civilization, and a European hero, whether Europe's rulers know it or not, the winner of the Defender of Freedom Award, Lars Hedegaard.
The figure that I've heard is that since 1979, the Saudi government alone has sunk over $200 billion into mosques and madrasas in Western countries. Don't get caught debating them about censorship. It's as tedious as watching a plank warp, and also I don't like the odds. They only have to win once to shut down free speech for good. We have to win every time. Now, I would rather debate the beardy OIC representative on how many Kalashnikovs he's got hidden under his bloated maternity dress than debate censorship with him. I don't like the odds. Let them know that Islam will be the first in the censor's crosshairs. Okay, and you will soon find that Islam is a freebooting libertarian ideology and that your local imam is a cross between Voltaire and George Orwell. In a free society, propagating Islamic doctrine is contrary to civil and criminal law. The Quran alone, forget about the Hadith, the Quran alone calls 3 times for unbelievers, that's us, to be killed wherever we are found, and all your families as well. Kill them wherever you find them. It calls 14 times for unbelievers to be enslaved, usually sex slaves taken in conquest. It calls numerous times for unbelievers to be made war against, to be subjugated, for harshness against unbelievers, in language that is reminiscent of the language used by Reinhard Heydrich, the chief henchman of the Holocaust, in his last will and testament. The language is strikingly similar.
This is the first goal of OIC, re-Islamize non-submitted Sharia regimes, to submit all those who are apostate, unbelievers, secular, Kemalist, Bourguibist, what you want, socialist, and those who are not Sharia submitted, even those who drink during the Ramadan. Now, in Tunisia, it was possible when we were living with my family. We are a Sicilian family from Tunisia. It was possible to drink during the Ramadan. Now, to drink alcohol, even orange juice, now nothing. Tunisia is coming back to the Sharia. Second goal of OIC is to conquer the West and to conquer what Tariq Ramadan and his master, Qardawi, call Dar of Shahada or Dar el-Shahada or Dar el-Da'wah. Europe is seen not anymore as a Christian country, but as a post-Christian country, already submitted to Zimitude, then in a way of Islamization. It's something official. You can hear Qardawi saying it's not anymore Dar al-Harb. It's not a war. The land of the war is the land of predication in the way of Islamization. This is the second goal of OIC, and it's partly achieved in some cities of Europe.
Under Sharia law, someone who is not a Muslim has no rights. If I am wrong here, I will be relieved and happy to stand corrected and receive your emails pointing out why I am wrong. But if I am right, a prisoner in Guantanamo Bay possesses more rights than a Jew or a Christian who lives under Sharia law. But it entails something which is worse than taxation without representation. It entails legislation without representation. Western policymakers do not take Sharia law too seriously because it is an academic and a religious affair. Western policymakers don't have much respect for academies and religions. They do not realize, don't have much respect for Sharia law because they think that it is a system of law that springs not from the power of a state, but from the minds of religious scholars. In the Muslim world, to the contrary, the authority of the Sharia is overwhelming. The colossal prestige of the Sharia in the world of Islam is easy to explain. Sharia law Islamic theology identifies Sharia law with the will of God. and the Sharia specialists are the religious leaders of the Muslim Islamic community. No government in the Islamic world can afford to alienate these specialists of religious law if it wants to remain in power.
I don't know who saw we had a demonstration in Dewsbury last Saturday, and 3 hours before the demonstration a car was stopped. It had a Taliban IED in the boot, it had guns and ammunition, and they were on their way to our demonstration to attack, maim and kill our supporters. They've been arrested this week, another 7 have been arrested. That is, to me, defining moments in history change the direction of a country. Bloody Sunday changed the whole direction of Northern Ireland. I would not like to lose any supporters or lose my life myself, but I believe if attack was made in Britain on our demonstration or on myself, I believe England would rise up. I believe there will be a moment like this. If we don't change what's happening in 20 to 30 years, there will be millions getting killed. There will be millions getting killed.
In 1990, we counted to 3 exclusion areas in Sweden. Suburbs where mostly immigrants live, where very few work, and they all live by welfare, and the children don't pass their exams. In 2002, they counted to 128 exclusion areas. In 2006, we had 156, and then they stopped counting. In some cities like Malmö, where I live, 1/3 of all inhabitants live in an exclusion area. What did the Social Democrat mean, Mr. Erlander, when he said that we Swedes were homogeneous? I think that he meant things like norms, values, culture and tradition, a feeling of fellowship, that we all in the old Sweden had a similar view of what makes the society good and how we solve conflicts. He knew what the Swedish culture was about, in contrast to Mona Sahlin. In the new Sweden, we need armed police officers at our hospitals because rivaling families fight each other in the hospital rooms. They gun each other down in the streets, and they rob and they beat old people. The crime rate grows by the minute, but the Swedish politicians and journalists tell us that it has absolutely nothing to do with immigration. The fact that our prisons are full of foreign people is just a coincidence or is explained by socio-economic factors.
2012 Brussels Declaration to safeguard individual liberties and human rights, to preserve free speech, civil liberties, human rights, and democracy against all efforts to injure and usurp those universal principles. We call upon leaders in all nations to support this 2012 Brussels Declaration to safeguard individual liberties and human rights, reasserting that human rights and liberties are universal, individual, equal, inalienable, and self-evident irrespective of philosophical, cultural, or religious considerations as a matter of long-held principle.
George, your question.
This is to Mr. Hedegaard and to the panel as a whole. Thinking about one point in particular, the rape wave of children in England. You know, it really messes with my head how they're called like grooming gangs, like it's something you do to your hair, where it's actually the sexual torture of children. It's the systematic sexual torture of children. And I remember reading a victim statement, 16-year-old girl, and she said, I got into this taxi and I never would have expected it because I thought these people were so religious. I thought these people were so peaceful. This girl's natural defenses have been removed, and they've been removed by a school that I pay for in my taxes, that Darwise had permitted in the school. And this turned my stomach. So what can we do about the children? And the reason why, because I just thought free press what can we do to get a press? You know, I mean, they won't be distributed, but what will we do to a press? How should we educate our children? Thank you.
Well, there are two things you can do. First of all, you can subscribe to our paper, because we'll certainly highlight this once a week, I think. The second thing we must do is we must recognize that these sorts of rape are not to be seen as normal crimes. They are part of warfare. It is one of the weapons, I hope you agree, it's one of the weapons used in jihad. Rape, especially rape of children, is a scare tactic. It's supposed to make people dejected. It's supposed to expose men as being unable to defend women. You are worthless, you are useless, you're a big fat tribe that is not willing to defend itself. And of course rape, gang rape, etc., is just one of the weapons. There are several other weapons used in this arsenal of weapons in the jihad arsenal. I think we have to recognize that, and therefore, when the press describes this as being done by youths without any further description, as one youth has raped an even younger youth, and blah blah. I mean, it is all intended to make us look the other way, and the truth has to be told, and that's the first thing we have to do.
Professor Jansen, and then Tommy for his last comment.
I saw a fatwa by an imam from Rotterdam, who said a boy told him, "I'm sleeping around, and is that adultery, or is it simply the right of the mujahid, the fighter, to sleep with the women of the country he is conquering?" And the imam did not say yes or no. The imam said, "Marry early and marry young, etc., etc."
Just need to work on a leaflet that details exactly what the Prophet Muhammad done, exactly the age he had sex with Aisha, exactly the telltale signs of grooming, and basically we've got activists ready to do it. It's just there's a £12,000 leafleting campaign to stand outside every single school across every single town and city in the country and give them to the mums and give them to the children and say, beware of Muslim youth. These are the telltale signs. This is how they get you. This is what they say, because it's a simple grooming tactic. I've got a cousin who wears a burqa with 7 kids. It happened to her. She was found running from the estate naked, drugged out of her head on heroin, and she climbs back out the window to go back to them for her drugs. She's called a drug addict. It's grooming. And there's a process, the same process, where they're treated in a certain way. Slowly they're taken away from their friends. Their clothes are changed. It's exactly the same process that happens to every single one of them. And it's a campaign that needs that. We've got it. We want to do a campaign across the country. No more mosque, no more halal. We want to have a stall in every town centre detailing this is who Muhammad is, this is Islam. The truth has to get out there. The only way it gets out there is if we put it out there. We have people ready to go to every single school and hand them out outside the schools, because no one can stop you, because you are out there protecting and letting people know that Muslim paedophiles are operating at these school gates. This is what they're doing. This is who they are. Whether you do a website that highlights who they are, names and shames who they are, whatever. But that's the only way, is to get out there and show people this is what they're doing. And that will combat it, because you'll be outside every single school letting the mums know, letting the kids know this is who they are, this is what they're going to do, this is what they're going to say, because it's exactly the same. What they do. I had my mate's ex-girlfriend, she got with a Pakistani lad. I was getting my hair cut by the hairdresser, and she said, "You won't believe what's happened to Caroline." I said, "Don't tell me. She don't hang around with any of her mates." I told her exactly what's happened to her. She was like, "How do you know?" That's what they do. I know loads of girls it's happened to. It's a system, it's a grooming period. And the only way you can do it is to show people what's going to happen and the telltale signs, and get out at the school gates and leave them. Yeah. So we need money.